Okay, let's just get right into it today.
Yeah, there was a lot to cover.
There really is. So today is Saturday. It's February 28th, 2026. And honestly, if you are listening to this right now, your phone has probably been just lighting up with breaking news alerts all morning long.
Oh, absolutely. The headlines are everywhere right now. A lot of speculation, a lot of noise.
Right, exactly. So much noise. But because you are the learner, I know exactly why you're here with us today. You love cutting through all that noise to get straight to the facts. You want the actual mechanics of what is happening behind the scenes.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. We aren't here to just give you a standard news recap.
No, definitely not.
We're looking past the immediate shock value of those geopolitical headlines to unpack the domestic security ripple effects. The invisible machinery that was triggered the literal second this news broke.
And to do that, we are pulling our facts today from an urgent comprehensive update. This was just pushed to the Patreon Geopolitical and Economic Collection known as KULT.
It's a fantastic source.
It really is. But before we lay out the timeline, we need to be incredibly clear about the parameters of our discussion today. The briefing materials we are unpacking involve highly active, politically charged military operations and national security events.
Yeah, that's a really crucial caveat.
Right.
We are stepping into very tense territory here, and we want to state outright that we are not taking any sides.
None at all?
We're not endorsing any political viewpoints, domestic or foreign, and we certainly aren't here to debate the ethics of foreign policy. Our strictly defined job today is to impartially report and analyze the facts exactly as they are laid out in the source document.
Exactly. We are just looking at the board, not playing the game.
Perfectly said.
So let's look at the board. Here is the breaking fact that triggered this entire operational shift. Overnight, the United States and Israel launched a massive, coordinated military strike against Iran.
And while those explosions happened thousands of miles away, the immediate chain reaction didn't stay overseas.
It never does.
Right. When a joint military campaign of this magnitude kicks off, it instantly activates a sprawling, largely invisible domestic security apparatus right in your backyard.
And that's the thread we are pulling today. We want to explore why a bomber in the Middle East fundamentally changes the security posture of the American city you live in, the networks you rely on, and the streets you walk down.
So let's break down the actual strike first, the catalyst for all of this.
Yeah, let's get into the hard facts. According to U.S. Central Command, these strikes initiated at exactly 1:15 a.m. Eastern Time.
Middle of the night for us.
Right. And the Pentagon has officially dubbed this Operation Epic Fury. The target list they went after is staggering.
It's massive.
Our briefing confirms they hit Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps command facilities, so that's the IRGC. They hit extensive air defense systems, missile launch sites, and military air bases across the country.
When you look at that specific target package, you aren't looking at a symbolic warning shot.
No, not at all.
Hitting command facilities and air defense networks is about systematically blinding your adversary. You are degrading their situational awareness and essentially decapitating their operational command.
It's a highly aggressive maneuver.
It is a forceful, highly aggressive maneuver. And in the world of global intelligence, when you execute a maneuver that significant, you absolutely have to assume the blowback will be proportional.
Or at least they'll attempt a proportional blowback.
Exactly. That means the home front has to brace for impact immediately.
Which is exactly what happened at the federal level before most of us even woke up today. Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, immediately threw the agency's counterterrorism and counterintelligence teams into a high alert posture.
Instant reaction.
Right. He pushed out a directive on X, formerly Twitter, saying that FBI staff is fully focused on the situation abroad. I'm going to quote his post directly here. He said, "The FBI staff is fully focused." Then he added, "Our Joint Terrorism Task Forces, JTTFs, across the country are working 24/7, as always, to address and neutralize any potential threats against the homeland."
We hear that term a lot in the news, Joint Terrorism Task Forces, or JTTFs. But it's worth understanding what that actually looks like in a crisis like this.
Yeah, break that down for us.
A JTTF isn't just a bunch of federal agents in tactical gear waiting around in a conference room in D.C. These are localized, deeply integrated hubs in major cities all over the country.
So they're plugged right into the local scene.
Exactly. You have a local city homicide detective who knows the neighborhood dynamics perfectly, sitting at a desk right next to an FBI counterintelligence agent, who is sitting next to an analyst with access to global signals intelligence.
That's a powerful room.
It really is. When the director says they're working 24/7, He means those specific rooms are flooded with personnel right now, drinking terrible coffee and running down every single anomaly in real time.
It's a massive logistical flex. But here's the operational wrinkle that really caught my eye in the briefing, and honestly, it's a bit of a bureaucratic nightmare.
Oh, the timing of this is unbelievable.
Right.
The sources highlight that Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is in direct, urgent coordination with federal intelligence and law enforcement to monitor and thwart any of these potential threats. However, this massive, high-stakes alert directive is happening right in the middle of a partial shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security.
It's almost absurd when you think about it.
Yeah.
You are asking the very department tasked with protecting the homeland to run a maximum alert national security operation while they are partially shuttered due to a funding lapse.
So how does that even work? Are we asking the people tasked with preventing an attack on U.S. soil to do it while worrying if their mortgage check is going to bounce this week?
Basically, yes. What happens during a shutdown is the implementation of essential personnel mandates.
Okay.
The administrative staff, the logistical support, the IT contractors, many of them might be furloughed. But the counterterrorism agents, the intelligence analysts, the border security personnel, they are legally required to report to duty, often without immediate pay, because they are critical to national security. That has to create incredible friction behind the scenes.
Massive friction. It is immense operational strain. Imagine trying to run a complex multi-agency intelligence sweep, but you can't access certain auxiliary databases because the contractor who maintains the server is on furlough.
Or they just aren't answering their phone.
Right. Or travel vouchers for field agents are frozen. You are demanding peak efficiency and absolute perfection from a bureaucracy that is currently financially hobbled. It is a stressful, grinding reality for the people on the ground managing this alert.
That is a wild context to keep in mind. So we have the federal picture, the FBI is locked in, JTTFs are running hot, and DHS is pushing through the friction of a shutdown.
Yep.
Let's pivot from Washington and look at your local neighborhood. If I walk out my door today, what does Operation Epic Fury actually look like in my city?
The very first thing you are going to notice is a drastic increase in visual deterrence. Whenever federal chatter spikes like this, local law enforcement immediately moves to harden what they call soft targets and sensitive locations.
And our research gives some very specific examples of this happening right now. The NYPD has explicitly reported that they are surging patrols across New York City.
Right, highly visible patrols.
Yeah, they are locking down perimeters around diplomatic missions, cultural centers, and religious institutions. We are seeing a nationwide increase in patrols, specifically at synagogues.
We're seeing it everywhere.
Even the U.S. Secret Service took the step of issuing a public warning. They're letting people know they should expect to see a much heavier police presence around protected sites. Down in Washington, D.C., the Metropolitan Police Department is in lockstep with federal partners.
There's a very specific psychology behind this heightened visibility.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second, though. If there are no specific threats, which we'll get to in a moment, isn't parking a marked NYPD cruiser with its lights flashing outside a cultural center just security theater? Is it just to make people feel better?
That's a fair question, but it's actually a highly calculated deterrence strategy. Yes, it reassures the public, but the primary audience for those flashing lights is the adversary.
Okay.
By putting a massive, heavily armed, visible presence at these locations, the message to any potential bad actor or opportunistic lone wolf is simple. We are awake. We anticipate you. The environment is no longer permissive.
That makes a lot of sense.
A hardened target forces an attacker to either delay their plans or make a mistake trying to bypass the security, which gives intelligence agencies more time to catch them.
Okay, the visibility forces their hand. But that's just what we can see on the street. The briefing notes there is an entire hidden layer of targeted surveillance running parallel to this.
The invisible dragnet.
Exactly. Some of the intelligence compiled from CBS News sources indicates that the FBI is actively, aggressively monitoring individuals inside the United States who have known ties to Hezbollah.
And we know Hezbollah operates as a highly capable proxy network. The strategic logic here is straightforward. If you strike the primary benefactor, you have to assume they might activate their proxy networks globally to retaliate.
And the methods the FBI is using to monitor these networks are intense. The sources specifically list electronic surveillance, covert operations, and the mobilization of human informants.
They're casting a massive net.
Huge. And it's not just Hezbollah. They are tracking potential threat vectors from Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and even homegrown violent extremists who might try to use the overseas chaos as a distraction.
This is where the sheer scale of the U.S. intelligence apparatus becomes apparent. When they say electronic surveillance in this context, they mean aggressively monitoring communications, analyzing financial transactions for sudden movements of money, and tracking digital footprints.
And what about the covert side?
Covert operations and informants mean they are actively shaking the trees on the street level. They're listening for any shift in chatter, any sudden change in behavior, or anyone trying to acquire materials. They are mapping the entire domestic landscape to ensure no one slips through the cracks while the world's attention is focused on the Middle East.
Now, I need to pause this right here because we just threw out some very heavy terms. Covert operations, electronic surveillance, heightened patrols.
It sounds alarming.
It does. It is incredibly easy to hear all that and feel a sense of panic. But both federal officials and the NYPD have been adamant about one grounding caveat. Despite this massive nationwide mobilization, there are currently no specific or credible threats identified against the United States or New York City.
This is perhaps the most vital distinction for anyone listening to understand today. A high alert posture does not equal an imminent attack.
Right.
What we're seeing is the system shifting from passive monitoring to active defense. They are raising the shields because the overall threat environment has changed due to Operation Epic Fury. It is a precautionary escalation to ensure that if a threat materializes, they are already positioned to intercept it.
So if there are no specific physical threats right now, what is the intelligence community actually losing sleep over? That brings us to a really fascinating part of the briefing, the concept of unconventional retaliation.
This is where it gets really interesting.
The sources quote Jason Pack, a retired FBI supervisory special agent. He notes that the domestic threat environment could change, potentially significantly, strictly because the United States is deeply engaged in this joint military campaign.
Pack is pointing to a very sobering historical reality here. Adversary actors, and the briefing specifically calls out Iran, Hezbollah, and various IRGC proxy groups, have demonstrated both the intent and the capability to respond to U.S. military actions in the past.
They don't just sit there and take it.
Right. They do not just absorb a decapitation strike like Epic Fury without formulating a response.
But they also know they can't match U.S. conventional military power. They aren't going to send a fleet across the Atlantic.
Exactly. So they look for vulnerabilities in the asymmetric space. They look for ways to inflict damage that bypass our conventional military strengths.
Which brings us to the absolute aha moment of this entire deep dive. This is the detail from the sources that really made me stop and rethink everything we've been discussing. Our briefing features insight from another expert, Brian Boetig. He's a former FBI cybersecurity official.
His analysis is crucial here.
He introduces this chilling concept to describe the modern asymmetric threat, cyber sleeper cells.
Yes. If you want to understand what the 21st century battlefield actually looks like, this is it.
Boetig warns that adversaries likely already have these cyber sleeper cells deeply infiltrated into U.S. networks right now. I want to read his exact quote from the source material because the phrasing is incredibly striking.
Go for it.
He said, "It's something that's just there silently, ready to activate at any moment when needed, and we're in that period now."
Notice how completely that redefines our traditional understanding of a threat. For decades, when we heard sleeper cell, we pictured a group of operatives hiding out in a suburban neighborhood.
Right, living quiet lives.
Exactly, just waiting for a burner phone to ring so they could launch a physical attack.
It's a very cinematic, physical idea.
But a cyber sleeper cell is entirely digital. It is malicious code. We are talking about advanced malware, hidden backdoors, or compromised administrative credentials that have been quietly planted inside critical U.S. computer networks months or maybe even years ago.
And they aren't actively doing anything malicious yet.
No, they aren't stealing data or deleting files yet. They are just sitting there, silently maintaining their access, waiting for a command signal from a server overseas.
So they infiltrate, they establish persistence, they map the network quietly, and then they just go to sleep.
Precisely. And so when Boeing says we're in that period now, he means that a massive kinetic event like Operation Epic Fury is exactly the kind of geopolitical trigger that could cause an adversary to wake those digital sleeper cells up.
And the targets for this kind of code wouldn't be military bases, right? They'd be the softest digital targets available.
That's the terrifying part. If you want to retaliate asymmetrically and cause maximum chaos,
Yeah.
you activate a piece of code that shuts down the scheduling and life support networks of a major hospital system.
Wow.
You disrupt a municipal water supply. You freeze a financial clearinghouse so millions of transactions just stop. Modern retaliation isn't always a bomb. It is a blackout. It targets the invisible civilian infrastructure that we blindly rely on for our daily survival.
That makes total sense.
That is exactly why the FBI cyber teams are on such high alert, alongside the physical JTTFs. They are frantically scanning for any anomalous pings, any sign that those dormant pieces of code are beginning to communicate with their masters overseas.
It is a totally different kind of war.
Mm.
Okay, let's pull the threads of this deep dive together. We started with the breaking, physical reality. It is late February 2026, and the U.S. and Israel have executed Operation Epic Fury, aggressively degrading highly sensitive military targets across Iran.
And that single action, happening halfway across the globe, instantly threw a switch here at home.
Right, activating a sprawling, multi-layered web of domestic protection.
We examine the physical manifestation of that web, with local police and the Secret Service actively hardening soft targets, cultural centers, religious institutions, diplomatic missions, all to visually deter opportunistic threats.
We also looked at the invisible dragnet. FBI Director Kash Patel mobilizing joint terrorism task forces around the clock, utilizing electronic surveillance and covert informants to monitor any domestic networks with ties to Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, or ISIS.
And we saw the incredible bureaucratic reality of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem managing this massive federal coordination.
Yeah, while navigating the severe friction of a partial DHS shutdown, relying on unfunded essential personnel.
Most importantly, we broke down the evolving nature of the threat itself. While officials are clear that there are no specific, credible physical threats right now, the domestic threat environment has fundamentally shifted.
The real vulnerability might not be on our streets, but in our servers, bringing us face to face with the reality of cyber sleeper cells waiting silently for an activation signal.
It really pulls back the curtain on how fragile yet heavily guarded our routine actually is. You might just be walking past a parked police cruiser or logging into your online banking portal today, completely unaware of the massive 247 intelligence apparatus burning the midnight oil to ensure those mundane actions remain safe.
It connects the hyperlocal reality of your daily commute directly to the shifting tectonic plates of global geopolitics.
It absolutely does.
And as we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, something that builds directly on this terrifying concept of cyber sleeper cells. If foreign adversaries already have malicious codes sitting silently in our digital infrastructure right now, how might the very definition of a homeland attack shift in our lifetime?
It's a huge question.
We are so conditioned to think of attacks in terms of physical violence and destruction, but what if the next major attack is completely silent? Just our power grids or our financial systems simply going dark? As a society, are we mentally prepared for a war fought entirely through the smart utilities and digital systems we blindly trust every single day?
It's a paradigm shift that requires a completely different kind of resilience, from the federal level right down to the individual.
Definitely something to keep in the back of your mind the next time you hear about a major military event overseas. Thank you for joining us as we cut through the noise and unpack the mechanics of the news today. Stay curious, keep asking questions, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.